Right. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome to the Sunday Scotch Society. My name is Kyle Quincy Shareem von Cedric Parker. I am the first of my name, and I am the proud father of one Kyle the warrior and one Maya the joyful. They are my children, and they are carrying on the legacy of incredibility that is the Parker heritage. For some strange reason, I felt establishing my personal familial bona fides was important today. I do not know why. I will trust that the universe will make that clear in time. In the meantime, I am also pleased to once again present for your listening pleasure and your drinking delectation one Matthew B. Kelly, my co-host, my partner in crime, my co-drinker, a Long Island boy himself, and I will let him say whatever else is necessary to explain to you how incredible he is.
Good day, everybody. I am that I am. Although I must clarify that I have Long Island blood, but I have not visited the motherland as yet, as it were. So once again, we miss the expressions on Quincy's face, but I want to get straight to introducing our wonderful, beautiful guest.
Fine, introduce our wonderful, beautiful guest, whatever. We're going to come back to that Long Island thing. I thought you said you wanted to introduce her.
No, I want you to introduce.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the Sunday Scotch Society today is a television superstar, someone who is a popular influencer in the social media sphere, someone whose name you will know, and when you see the pictures that we post in our social media channels, whose image and face you will recognize. She is a voice of commentary and also interpretation of the financial and economic and business environment of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. She is herself an entrepreneur. She has a short afro at present, and her name...
Relevant info.
Sorry?
Relevant info.
Okay, yes. And she's wearing interesting earrings. So that's relevant. The relevance of that will become clear soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ria Christina Butler. Ria, welcome to the Sunday Scotch Society.
Thank you for having me.
Matthew raised the point of, once again, missing video, which we really should address before too much longer, Matthew. Your face went through an interesting array of contortions while I was introducing you. I am not certain why, because nothing that I said was untrue. So why the faces?
Well, I mean, so the thing is, it becomes one of those things where when you hear about yourself, you start to be like, who are they talking about? So that's why I had all of the different faces, because, yeah, I tell people, it's just me. I'm me.
With the greatest of respect, Matthew, you'll have to help me out here. There's no such thing as it's just me. First of all, everybody has a story. Everybody has a tale to tell. Second of all, the fact is, the CV that I gave for you a minute and a half ago was not something that I made up. I did not create that out of whole cloth. I only spoke what was the truth. Is that not so?
Correct. You are correct.
Right. So, with that being said, accept the fact. Use a big shot.
Boy, I take it. I take it that I'm a big shot.
You see that? She can't even say it with a straight face. Fair enough.
Yes.
I mean, humility is a thing, and I appreciate it and I respect it. But we didn't invite you to have this conversation with us here because you're not someone that we want to talk to. Mm-hmm. We invited you to have a conversation because you are, because you've done some things and you've been some places, you've had some experiences that make chatting with you something that both of us are anticipating. So please let that be the end of any humility that you might try to demonstrate in
Not
in
the
this.
humility that I trying to
Lone
demonstrate.
boasting on the show, please.
Matthew, don't sandbag me. I'm not saying that she should boast. I'm saying that she should be direct and honest and not try to downplay or sidestep if something comes up that might seem like she's bragging or talking about accomplishments. That's if that is what it is what it is.
All right.
Tell the truth, shame the devil.
Amen.
And that's what you all believe?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Don't try to pretend like you ain't part of that.
Huh?
You believe that too.
Of course I do.
Don't say y'all.
Oh.
Right. We.
Let me rephrase. And that's what we believe?
That's right. That's what we believe.
Okay, good. Thank you for calling me out, Matthew. I am a good church boy, as the people at Christ Church Cathedral will be hopefully able to certify. If they can't, God help us all. Today, before we get into the conversation with Ria Christina, we are in for an extraordinary treat. I am a huge Irish whiskey fan. The name of the show is the Sunday Scotch Society because I drink single malt scotches more than any other alcohol. And they are sort of a treasure trove of different experiences that I've been able to enjoy in the 20 years that I've been drinking them. But one of the things that I've discovered over that same period of time is that every now and again, the Irish whiskeys will put out something that will just punch you in the nose and say, this is what you should be drinking. The first time I tried Jameson Irish whiskey, for instance, I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I do like blended whiskeys. And today we have one of Jameson's more exclusive offerings. This is the Jameson Black Barrel, which is triple distilled. It is distilled in charred bourbon barrels, and the charring of the barrel is one of those techniques that distillers use to impart additional flavors to the spirits that they're offering. And so the charring of the bourbon barrels that this whiskey was aged in what that means is the barrel would have already served as the home of a beautiful bourbon. They would have gotten rid of that bourbon. Mm-hmm. Then they would have burnt the inside of the barrel, well, charred it, as a way of, quote unquote, bringing the barrel back to life. And then they would have set the Jameson in there to age for another couple of months or another couple of years, and that is how this this whiskey got both the name and the flavor profile that it has. And I find it quite delicious. So I'm excited to be able to share it with Matthew and those of you who are drinking with us this afternoon. We're going to do the thing. Let's do the thing.
Lead on, my intrepid guide.
You'll see why in a moment. And immediately, the bourbonite aromas of vanilla and butter are there. Immediately, you get a little spice from the char and oakiness.
Yes.
Right? And then then it kind of starts to mellow a little bit.
There's a little alcohol forward there.
Of course! It's triple distilled.
Oh,
I mean,
that's the beverage we're having today.
This is a strong, strong, strong whiskey.
Okay. In that case, I'm even more surprised. I'm picking up undernotes of apple. Well,
it's fruity. It's soft and sweet on the nose, and until the alcohol kind of tickles the nose hairs, and you get that little burn in your eye from when you smell something dead strong. Try it. Smell it. Smell it.
Yeah, that's plenty alcohol.
But what else do you smell? Come on, tell the truth.
I smell alcohol.
And?
No clue. Almost probably pear.
Yeah.
And
that's as far as I could go.
Alcohol and pear. I think you've done well. I agree with you. One more time. Try it. One more.
Matthew, what'd you say?
One more sniff.
I say I'm going to the palate here.
I know.
Okay. And now, I usually start off, but I'm gonna let this. I'm ready to
Jameson surprises me.
Yeah.
With being mellow on the palate. I'm not. This whiskey is a little confusing for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, the triple distillation is a part of the reason it is strong, but it is also why it is smooth. Because every time through the distillation process smooths out those edges, especially as it's sitting and aging in the charred bourbon barrels. Don't forget the bourbon is rounding out the edges off of the whiskey, see?
No, for sure. The charcoal is filtering out some of the more bitter molecules, I'm sure.
That is so good.
And then the top fraction
Ooh,
is being
sweet.
taken out every distillation. So, I don't know, but the experience
Apparently,
is still
ladies
surprising.
and gentlemen, somebody's been studying.
Oh, that's the little bit I knew before.
Oh, well, there you go.
Before you started to take me on this adventure.
It's like on the. So there's a picture that that you get of the receptors on the tongue, right? Where the sweet is on the sides and the sour is in the back, and yada yada, whatever the realities of that, where your taste buds are located. What I find the first sip of this whiskey does for me, is it hits every element on my tongue, which is not the usual experience when you're drinking a strong whiskey. Usually, all you get is the strong alcohol, and then maybe, if you're lucky, some flavor. But this is almost all flavor first, and then the alcohol burn comes after, as it's seeping down your esophagus and warming up your lungs and getting down to your tummy. Yeah?
What an experience.
Exactly. It's one you're missing, unfortunately.
Fortunately or unfortunately?
Unfortunately for you. I mean, I know you think it's fortunate, but in this case, Ria Christina, you're wrong. You should try this.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
going to give this a 4 out of 5 in terms of danger.
What does that mean?
One should be careful around this.
Well, I agree with that.
It doesn't
Because you don't feel
hit
it.
you as
Yeah.
if it is what it is.
Yeah.
In terms
I
of
agree.
alcohol content.
I agree. It's so smooth you don't realize what a wallop it's packing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Approach with caution.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Actually, I like that phrase. Approach with caution. I want to do something with that now.
what else do you approach with caution in life, Ria?
What else do I approach with caution?
Yes. Like I find that I must approach the road with caution here in beautiful Nassau.
I think we all approach the road with caution.
Well, I mean, not all. That's why I approach it with caution.
Not all of us
Well,
do. You're
yeah.
right. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
select few idiots out there.
Yeah. So aside from the road, what else do I approach with caution? I approach with caution decision making as relates to my kids. Like, because at the end of the day, I do not want them to see me as a parent that's forcing my views on them in terms of having to make a decision for what their future looks like. I try to engage them to the point where, listen, you tell me what it is that you want to do and let me know how I can help to support you. This is not you have to go be a doctor, lawyer, any of that stuff, a banker, no.
Quincy, being the other parent in the room, has raised not an eyebrow, but his entire brow.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I suspect that he doesn't completely disagree. So I'm really interested in finding out what this is about.
The
Reaction.
Yeah, my reaction wasn't to the way Ria is raising her children. It was to the very clear judgment that she expressed about people who are raising their children differently. This ain't you gotta go be a doctor, lawyer type vibe.
Well, I mean, so when I'm saying that from the reference point of in having to grow up, there are certain professions that, your parents probably would have said, but I need you to go in this direction, you need to do this, and this. Because these seem to be the more prominent, and not to say that I'm knocking anybody in any of those fields, but I think where it is that we are and where it is that we're headed, it's more so allowing our children to utilize their gifts and their talents and their abilities to really foster or steer them in the direction that they need to go in. Don't feel the pressure that you have to be what everybody else is. One of the things, I'll give you a story. When many years ago, I remember driving in the car, and my son, I don't know, he had to have been maybe 10 or so around the time. And he was like, Mommy, I need to go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay, but we're in traffic. And he's like, I wish they had a car that had a bathroom in it or a toilet in it. I said, how about you be the one that actually invent that or create that? But it's really having to challenge them along the thought process that do not just limit yourself, that because something doesn't exist, mean that you can't be the person who's going to provide the solution to the problem.
Where then does the line have to be drawn for being too lenient or encouraging of quote unquote creativity when those ideas are clearly not going anywhere?
And let me complicate that.
Why complicated?
This is what the Sunday Scotch Society
Oh
is.
boy.
Just deal. Psalm 127,
Ooh.
3 to 5.
Why we gotta do this?
Because, as Matthew said, I'm one of them. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord.
Yes.
And the fruit of the womb is his reward. As in the Lord's reward, not yours. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them, etc., etc., etc. The reason that I chose that particular scripture to bludgeon you with is because arrows do not direct themselves. If you leave an arrow to direct itself, chances are it is going to end up in the ground doing nothing but stabbing into the dirt.
Right, but I'm not saying that I'm not giving direction to my kids, you know.
That is exactly what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that I'm not giving.
Isn't that exactly what you said?
So,
I
no.
do not agree with you, sir. But I do want to know where the line is drawn.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Why are
that
you
I'm.
always on the,
No, you're just always on my side. I'm just saying I'm allowing them to be a part of how their future is directed.
Let me quote you.
Rather
Let me quote you
rather than
directly.
me having.
Let
I'm
me
not.
quote
What
you
I'm saying
directly.
is I'm the one that having the sips, right? But
Let
what
me
I'm
quote
saying
you
is
directly.
no. Hold on. What I'm saying is
Tell me
I
what
am
it
not
is you
telling
want
them-
to do, and then tell me how I can help you do that.
Yeah, but while that is. You are correct. So
That
while
is a
that is
direct quote,
Yeah, but
regardless of
while
what
that
sips
is-
I might be having.
But while that is in fact the case, it's not to say that I'm not providing them with the necessary guidance that they still do need. So yes, you tell me I'm interested in this. Let's use an example. My son now, he's about to be 23, and he's in the. He approached me. He's like, "Mommy, I think about going into banking," and I'm like, "So why banking?" And I'm just gonna challenge you just because you saying this is what you want to do. Why you want to do this? Well, y'all were in banking, and it's in my blood. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but help me to understand what you're thinking, what your thought processes are
Banking
pertain.
is in the blood.
Yeah. So, but it's
I don't
one
know
of those.
if I should touch that.
Yeah, don't touch it. But using that as an example, so while, he may say that this is what it is that he wants to do, he wants to go after it, then fine. Just tell me that this is something that you really see yourself doing, not just because you would have seen me taking that path after being in banking for 19 years. He saw me survive 19 years of banking. I don't want him to use that as the thing to say, because mommy did it, I need to take this path as well. That don't have to be the case. If you are not interested in that particular field, then don't do it. Go after where your passion lies. And I will continue to encourage them. Where's your passion? Where is it that you're talented? And that sort of stuff.
Let me. I'm not sure if this is a challenge or I just want clarification from your point of view. Why should they follow their passion? Why should anyone follow their passion?
The reason behind me wanting them to go after what they're passionate about, because when things go sour, when things are not working out, it's going to help them to pretty much motivate themselves to keep on going. Okay. So if it ain't working out, something's going to drive you. It's going to drive you. It's going to push you to keep on finding, okay, this didn't work. Let's try another iteration of this. That didn't work. Let's try something else. Keep on moving.
Okay, so I guess my questioning is coming from a popular understanding of the word passion being something that flames brightly and also can burn out fairly easily. So there was a movement, let's say in the 2010s, that was really big on follow your passion in this, right? And then there's some pushback fairly recently, I'd say over the last 5 years, that this is a bad idea for a number of reasons, right? And I'm not taking sides here. But one useful conception that I've come across is, instead of framing things as a passion, follow that, rather find a calling. And the reason I find it very useful is because when you don't feel like it, a calling is still a calling. You have to do
Correct.
it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're there day in and day out. Whereas if the passion fades or vacillates in some manner, you know, I don't feel like it today. I'm not passionate about it anymore. So, as I've said already on the podcast, and I will say many times again, words mean what we use them to mean, right? But finding that common language so that we're talking about the same thing is something that I think I'm going to continually push for. And when I hear something that has multiple conceptions in the popular mindset, I want clarification. So,
And in service of that very clarification, I think this is an odd turn of the conversation, but I'm glad it happened, because this is a thing that
I no, Rhea, I don't think it's the alcohol.
Not yet, but you did say
That's
approach with
just,
caution.
that's just
so.
what this show is about.
All right, let's go.
Is conversation and taking
We
taking
roll with it.
turns.
ladies and gentlemen, it's 2 months and change now since Matthew and I have been doing this together.
And you're doing an
I think
amazing
it's
job.
very clear that he just has a bias against me and towards whoever our guest is. He's always on their side. But what happened just now was unfortunate. The guest made an unkind insinuation,
Oh my gosh.
and Matthew did not defend me as vigorously as I believe he should have. And having said that, I return to the conversation.
Please defend your
Dear,
host.
dear listener, please note my hurt at this misinterpretation, I believe, of what just occurred. Let us continue. You were saying, Quincy.
That we have entered a conversation that I think is almost like not a culmination, but almost a culmination of many of the previous conversations that we've had on the show. Because you talk about finding a calling, and also, as you say, words mean what we think they mean and what we use them to mean. I want you to define calling, because it's a very sort of popular phrase in the vernacular, but I don't know that we all mean the same thing when we say what's your calling or find a calling or whatever the case may be. So I want you to give us your definition so that Rhea can say whether she agrees with that and I can say whether I agree with it, and then we can move forward and talk about the importance of a calling, because I think that's a really important conversation to have.
Sure, the turnabout is fair play. So I will go to perhaps cliche example, but I think it works. It's real. If you look at someone who, let's just say a monk, they're called to the mission that they believe they've been given in life, right? And
we believe it too.
when they are in a monastery, not having fun, not being passionate about things, right? They know that the sacrifice, let's say it's short term, but it could be a very long short term, is worth it to them. And so no matter the ups and downs involved, they are going to be dedicated because they believe they're called to some higher purpose.
Yeah, but what does it mean to be called? That's my question.
Well, here's where it gets a little harder to support, but it comes down to internal beliefs. It's just that in my mind, the framing of a calling versus a passion is the difference between a long-term rock-steady belief that is unlikely to change versus a flare up of emotion
Right.
that is going to burn out. And the question is, how do you survive the burnout? Or is that just going to lead you to switching your direction, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
But if
Right.
you need the stickability to get what you want done, then maybe
It's
not
like-
such a good thing to serve you.
It's like a supernova versus a sun, right? A supernova is brighter than the sun, but it's gone after it flares up. And the sun may not necessarily be as sexy as a supernova, but that sucker's still around. So I hear you. The defining element of a calling for you is longevity, sustainability of investment,
And the
I guess,
willingness to
moral
sacrifice, even when especially when it doesn't feel good.
like when you're cold, or you took a vow of poverty,
Cold, hungry,
or you took a vow of silence,
or celibacy,
or celibacy,
or
yeah.
you're just out in the bush.
Yes. My friend, one of my very best friends, is a missionary living in Budapest right now. And before she was in Budapest, she was in the Philippines. And she and her husband and their daughter are from Tulsa. Well, she's from Texas, and the husband is from Tulsa, and the kid was born in Tulsa. And one of the things that they used to talk about was this fruit from the Philippines called durian. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a durian, right? but
Do
it's,
yourself a favor and look at some videos.
yeah, I mean,
Especially
really.
of cats experiencing durian.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wow.
And it is rancid. The smell is repulsive. The taste may not necessarily be as bad as the smell, but they compared some of their experiences to the smell of durian. Right? They did not have a good time.
Wow.
But they as a couple and as individuals, they believed in their call so much to the mission field that after the Philippines, when they had an opportunity to go back to the U.S. and just set up shop in a church and get paid to be church musicians and be happy and rich, they ended up hopping on a plane and going to start an entire ministry of the arts from scratch in Budapest. And Jeffrey, the husband, is a Scotch drinker and cigar smoker like me. That is one of our primary bonding moments, is to sit on the back porch with the right cigar and the right bottle of Scotch and talk or play our guitars and drink and smoke, right? He can't do that. And that was a significant sacrifice for him, because that was one of the few places where he was able to really just be, right? And it might seem like a simple thing, but to give up that moment in your life where you could just be without anybody pulling on you, without any expectations, without any deliverables, you could just be. To sacrifice that, you have to believe in what you're doing. You know, you have to really have given yourself to it. So, longevity, commitment. What do you think a calling is, Ria Christina?
Well, I mean, I do agree in terms of it being longevity and the belief. It's just one of those things. Yeah, I'll go stay with that. The longevity as well as the belief, because I do agree. Even when you talk about having to have the level of sacrifice that needs to be made, it is a lot depending on what it is. And sometimes when even when you look at the circumstances, even to Quincy's friend's point, not very many of us would even position ourselves to say, hey, that's going to be me. So if you're called to it, yes, you'll stand the test of time and be able to go ahead and do some stuff and be able to handle it. Even I'll give a more personal example with that in terms of there's a divorce care group that I actually lead at my church. And this is with me having to have the conversations with persons who are going through a divorce, possibly they've been divorced for quite some time, or they're just not quite sure where they are. And while we sometimes have the conversation, I have to respect the fact that some of the persons that's even in the group, they're like, yeah, Rhea, that ain't me. I can't talk about this in public because this is not no, I'm still dealing with shame. I'm still dealing with everything else that comes with it, and I just want to keep it all private. But for me, I know that there's a group of people out there that need to hear that there is a way out, or there is still hope. There's still life after divorce. And if it comes from me to be that person, to be that voice, to say that, then here I am. I'm going to say to you, there is life after divorce. And it's not to say that I'm encouraging people to go ahead and get divorced, because the reality of it is it's happening every day. And there are people who are actually suffering in silence and not saying anything because they're afraid to say something to someone. But I'm that person to say, no, we can talk about it. Let's deal with it, because this is a real thing. It's a real place. So do I feel as though I'm called to the divorced people? I do. And it's one of those things where it's it's definitely a belief, all because I went through my own process and I felt as though there wasn't the support that I wanted to have during that time. It wasn't there. So it was, okay, maybe you are the solution to somebody else's problem. You could be that for someone else. So that's really how it came about for me. So in a roundabout way, I'm telling you what I believe the call actually is, in that we are solutions and feeling the necessary need, because even with them going to start the school of ministry or whatever, they're providing a solution in their own way, and not having to be driven by just a thought by somebody else.
That's an interesting take. I wonder if you could have a calling that's not solution based. I'm going to think about that.
Yeah, I made a note. I find, okay, so this website called Better Up, it's a blog, has this very pop culture definition of what is a calling. Right? They say a calling is a pull towards something you feel uniquely qualified to do and enjoy passionately. Some act out God's calling, like becoming a missionary, while others pursue professional callings, like becoming an Olympic skater. In every situation, you'll experience a strong inclination to use your talents to find meaning in life and to make an impact on others. And
that's not bad.
I was going to say, I'm not generally a pop culture psychology type guy, but I think that that definition actually hits almost all of the elements that we address. The one that I want to pick up on is you feeling uniquely qualified to address the thing, whatever the thing is, whatever it is you feel called to do. So the reason that I wanted to stop and dig into this a little bit is because the Bahamas is overflowing with money. Our economy is about $15 billion as of 2-3 years ago now, but it's about $15 billion economy. Our workforce is about 280,000 people. The amount of money flowing through our financial system beggars the imagination, right? I'm talking hundreds of billions of dollars a year, including the offshore sector. The average salary or the average income of a Bahamian family is it hovers between $25,000 and $35,000 a year, which sounds like a really small amount of money. Until you realize that in some places in the world, that's a lifetime's worth of saving to get to what even the poorest of us, make in a year. On top of that, we have what amounts to a welfare state, where you have free healthcare, free education, and most of us know someone who's living on the street and could bring them home or take them to their family if we wanted to. So I'm of the view that as bad as people like to make things sound about life in the 242, we are beyond blessed, to use sort of religious-ish language. We are beyond blessed as a people. And one of the things that I complain about to my friends on those infrequent occasions where I may be found to be making a complaint is that we live in paradise, but we live like niggas in paradise. Right? We don't live like we belong here. We live like we just, and I recognize that my opinion on the subject is my own opinion, so I'm fully prepared for whatever blows may come from whatever quarter they come. But the upshot of all of this is I feel like unless people in this country start pursuing a calling rather than pursuing money, we are probably going to not be here in 50 years in a way that you and I as parents, Rhea, and Matthew as a man of the arts and sciences will recognize or be satisfied with. The fundamental changes that I think will happen in the Bahamas if we continue to pursue just accruing more money instead of trying to pursue whatever our calling might be, I think is going to destroy this country. Yes, I said destroy this country. I know it sounds alarmist. Those are my beliefs. Shoot me if you want.
No. We're not going to go that far.
Respond.
We're not going to go that far.
Okay. You don't have to go that far, but I would be curious to hear your reaction to my little diatribe. Yeah,
so I do agree in terms of not having to have the focus towards being money driven. While we know for a fact that, money still answers all things, right? And the thought that's coming to mind is sometimes you may have those business ideas, I know I've had them, where the business is driven towards helping, right? Really having to help. But then the question comes, Maria, I see you helping, but where's the money? Where's the money that's coming in this? And the reality of it is, there are still bills that need to be paid regardless, right? But we have to, in that process of possibly even coming up with the business ideas that may come in the form of wanting to help, we still have to be creative in how do we find the money aspect that comes up, but it's not necessarily the focal point. right? So it's not the focal point, and it's not the thing that's going to be the driving force. And hopefully, once we do, this is where the when you position yourself in terms of the actual calling, since we're talking about calling, the money comes. The money comes afterwards. For some people, they may want to see that money up front, but while you're going ahead and doing the work that's necessary, I think everything else will take care of itself. Not to say that you don't have to do the work on the other side. So, for example, in having a conversation about WOW, which is
What is WOW, please?
what is WOW? So WOW is the Wells of Wealth Cultivators, which is a nonprofit organization that I found, which was specifically
I'm
for
sorry, you founded a nonprofit organization called Wells of
Wells of Wealth.
Of Wealth. Thank
Yes.
Whoa.
What? Wells of Wealth Cultivators, yes. So, I mean, the premise behind it really is to help women in business, but not just women in business from just having to focus on the business aspect, is really having to look at the holistic approach. Now, for someone that's probably just hearing about WOW Cultivators for the very first time, and the thing is, well, okay, you're sounding like you really want to just be helping people or helping women. I really do want to help them. Like, I really do. But the question comes, so where's the money that comes in with it? And it's having to mobilize and see where the other opportunities that can actually bring in the resources, because there are people out there that really still do need the help. So I'm committed to going through whatever the process is so that I can help the people that need to be helped. And of course, as the time goes on as well, having to approach the people that have the resources that can also help to fund whatever the mission, the vision is for everything to be accomplished.
Yeah, there's the conversation around this is just so vast that I don't want to get into much. But I do want to make a quick comment about what Quincy touched on in terms of the size of the economy and the average income of a household here. And it's just a pet peeve of mine that we perpetuate a less nuanced or even appropriate discussion about numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, average versus mode.
Mm-hmm.
You will have probably never heard someone pipe up and say, the modal income is X, Y, and Z, right? But yet we know, we're taught in our math classes, the simple difference between means and modes. And so if you tell me that the average income is, let's say, $20,000, I think you said it was something like around 25, but we have a few people making gobs and gobs and gobs and gobs of money, right? How many people are actually making 25,000? I want to know those numbers, because those are the numbers that actually matter, not the
outlier
construction of a mean, of an average, right? There might be 6% of people making that, whereas most of the people are making below that. But because of the skew in the numbers, it makes it, if you say average, it makes it seem as if, most people are doing it. That's just not how it works, right? And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the conversation about the economy and where does money come from, your statement that this is a mostly, what was the word that you used?
I'm not sure which part you're talking about, so I can't help you.
Nanny state.
Oh, welfare state.
Welfare state, yeah. So, all of these things are super important, right? And the question is, like, do we have an economy that we actually want? What is the money for? How do people track wealth? How much is actually needed? But if we don't come to it with tools that are at least talking about the right things, or that we understand that we're having an understanding around the same thing, then I think any discussion around that is doomed. And so again, there's just so much to talk about there that I'm not going to bounce into it. But I do want to make the point that we have to be careful about how we discuss these things. That was a bit of a downer.
Well, I mean, one of the thought that actually came to mind when you were talking is, for the most part, a lot of when you start to have those kinds of conversations, you want to understand where's the data, right? And from my understanding, there's a challenge with data in this country in terms of even being able to readily access the data, or whether or not it's even being compiled in a format that can be easily used by someone else.
The reality, however, is that the Bahamas Department of Statistics has morphed into what are they called now? The Bahamas National Statistics Institute. They have an incredible wealth of data, particularly things like income and national salary type data from national insurance, from government pay, from whatever the case may be. So the data is there. The way that the data is used may be up for grabs, but in this instance, while I agree with you about general data, that this particular data there's no dearth of it. We know exactly what percentage of Bahamians are making what kind of salary in the workforce. Any minister of finance, any minister of state for finance, any permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and certainly the financial secretary could rattle that number off the top of their head. I guarantee it. The challenge is, I go back to living like niggas in paradise. This is a discussion that teeters on purpose. What purpose are we having the discussion for? If we are having the discussion to make a political point, to score brownie points, to support a predetermined course of action, to whatever the case may be, then we're going to use the numbers in a way that, may not necessarily be whatever. Everybody uses numbers for their own purposes. That's why you always say there are three things: there's the left, the right, and the truth, right? So I feel like Matthew's point about responsibility in the discussion it's a fair point, but we just have to be careful that we are being honest and transparent in what it is we're trying to say.
Right. Well, one thing that I would add, though, is the context around these numbers. We have some great statisticians. We have great numbers. And when I say we, I mean the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The question is, which representatives of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas have access to that information? And how accessible is it to someone who is not in this hierarchy? Why do I have so many people complaining to me with the same statement that Rhea said, which is, we have a problem with data in this country? We, in this case, meaning most of us, don't have access to this data, which belongs to us. So, I don't know where the fault lies. I'm not casting aspersions on people in particular, but there's something rotten in Denmark in the way that we use what we have and the sequestering of resources ostensibly for the reasons, one of the reasons that you put forward was this whole political football foolishness.
Yeah. The question.
Man, this is heavier than our usual conversation.
Isn't it? I love it.
How did we get here? like this is what is
Black
this?
Barrel,
Jameson Black Barrel.
Don't blame the Black Barrel.
You're beginning to sway me to your side on
Don't
this
blame the
particular
Black
thing.
Barrel. You did this by talking about how you
Jameson.
raising your children.
Jameson
This is
Black
your fault.
Barrel.
It's your fault. Don't blame the ticket.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming up on that time where we're going to leave you on the radio. We're gonna have a nice wrap up to this, but I invite you to join us for the rest of this conversation, which is juicy and ongoing, online for the full conversation. You know how podcasts work.
Yeah.
You know where to look
Yeah.
and subscribe. So back to you, Quincy.
Sure. I was going to ask, and I think I'm still going to ask. In fact, I know I'm still going to ask because I wrote it down to ask still. Can a business be a calling?
Can a business be a calling? The business could be the vehicle by which you carry out your calling.
So, I'm sorry, I asked a yes or no question and you didn't say yes or no.
Yes.
A business couldn't be a calling.
Yes.
Okay. And you, after 19 years in banking, plus all your years in business development, plus wells of wealth cultivators, renew, and all your time on you and your money, you stand by that statement.
My Lord, you trying to see? This is where
This sounds a little suspicious.
it sounds very suspicious. How should I take that?
Sorry, why does it sound suspicious?
How should I take that?
I just asked if you stand by your statement.
That
Sound
sounds
like some General Akbar action going on.
I don't know.
Do you stand by your statement? Yes or no?
I stand by the initial statement that I made to say that it could be a vehicle by
It
which.
is a yes or no question.
So the calling goes to the actual individual. But the means by which you carry out that particular calling, that particular assignment, can be by way of a business.
So, when you were taking exams in school and college, and the instruction on the exam was this is a multiple choice exam, select A, B, C, D, or E. You used to write out essays, I guess.
No.
Because
Quincy, what you trying
this
to-
a yes or no question.
Why-
And you've given me a paragraph answer.
Yeah, but
Can a business be a calling?
how
Clarify this question because I don't understand. Are you asking if someone can apply their effort to a business and that effort be a calling? Or are you asking if the entity that is a business can be a calling or the business itself have a calling? Like that, that's what I'm trying to understand in your question. Quincy is giving me the face, shut up, I didn't ask you.
Yet. What I'm trying to get at is the second question or the second clarification that Matthew offered is perhaps pertinent. I grew up my whole life feeling pulled towards X. I believe that I am specifically talented in X. And I want to do X for the purpose of fulfilling my purpose in this earth. Can I make a business out of that?
But wasn't that what I just talked about, Quincy?
Sweet Jesus, girl.
Yes. Let me give you a yes. You want me to give you a yes or no answer? Yes.
How?
Now see,
Tell this man how to get rich, doing what he loves.
Thank you, Matthew. I don't understand why.
Tell him he
No,
don't have
but-
to. He
I
don't
don't
have to
understand
go
why I have to beg.
through
no.
the pain of this life,
Listen,
not
but
doing
which was,
the
which,
thing he was put here to do.
Please tell her.
oh, Matthew,
She's
you
not
preaching?
listening.
Who's not listening? Oh my gosh, Quincy. But we just went through this, right? Didn't I just say the calling, the business is an avenue by which you can carry out your calling? You gone silent now, Matthew. What happened?
So
You feel like that's an answer to my question?
I'm gonna back Rhea up here and say that it depends on a couple of things, including your definition of business. As she pointed out, a nonprofit might be a way to go ahead and do those sorts of things. The patron model might be that. You could still call these things businesses, but they're not what people usually think of when you think of business. You know, they think of something completely for profit with money as the main objective. So the harsh reality is, though, that were you born, let's say 10,000 years ago, your proclivity for music might be more appreciated than it is now, but at the same time, even less economically viable. And that's in the market in the Bahamas where, you know, even people like yourself and others who we had on the podcast who are amongst the best in the world at what they do, you have a hard time here at home. That's just the market.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you are going to become a dictator just so you could play classical guitar or whatever your particular bent is, you know, the answer might be yes, comma, but you ain't gonna like it. It's gonna be a business of $10 a day.
My Lord.
And now we come back to the question that I asked. You have a calling in your mind, but your calling only earning you $10 a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's a business?
There are things that you could do. Okay? You don't have to
Matthew,
leave
I
it
asked
there.
Rhea.
Oh, I didn't. Sorry.
Apologies.
I genuinely
Apologies. The
did
question,
not realize
the question was pointed
that
at
you were
Rhea.
But-
pointed directly at
I
her.
apologize.
So it still goes back. I know what I get myself into today, but it still goes back to what I said earlier, right? Now, to your point of the $10 a day, obviously you can't do it with $10 a day. So you have to.
If I was making $10 a day from my music in this country, I would be ecstatic.
Boy, I don't know who that was pointed to.
$3,650 a year.
I don't know who that was pointed to. Listen, for those of you that's out there that's listening, make sure that you do a better job at paying Quincy more than $10. $10 a day for his
But see,
music.
this is averaged.
Yeah. So let's leave that alone. Because Quincy, how you feel about that?
How do you feel about what?
Making a call for the people out there who could utilize your service to pay you more than the $10 a day for your services.
If there was a universe in which I would work for $10 a day, then I would feel, very grateful for you all making that call. But Quincy Parker is not working for $10 a day.
Absolutely not. Yeah, you definitely can have a business for $10 a day. So the other side of it would be, while there is, we talked about the nonprofit might be an avenue by which you are able to carry out your calling. You still have to be creative in terms of finding other means to get to the actual income. What are the other things that you can actually do that will still tie into the actual nonprofit. For example, can you go ahead and create other products that ties into the actual nonprofit, and it still gives you some means of an income? So you have your products. You may have, in the sake of a nonprofit, you may have your speaking engagements where you can get income from that, but not necessarily from the nonprofit itself. You may have, in my instance, I could possibly very well tie in jewelry as another option of a product that still ties into the actual nonprofit itself. So it's not just looking at the nonprofit itself to say that this is going to be the only means by which you're going to get an income, but what are some of those things that you can do for a profit?
Before you do your thing, Matthew, I wish to say thank you very much to those of you who've joined us on Guardian Talk Radio. That's going to do it for this week's podcast episode. As Matthew has already said, though, you can join us online for the rest of the conversation. Rhea, tell the people what Renew is before we go.
Well, Renew is my jewelry line, and it's cosmetic jewelry and accessories. One of those...
Why do you don't do this right? Start with the most important thing.
What do you want it to be?
What's the most important thing about your jewelry, Rhea?
The most important thing about my jewelry, Renew, is that it's a part of the line, or one of the lines that I actually have is it's a fruit-inspired jewelry, which would be the...
No.
What?
It's not fruit-inspired, Rhea.
What it is? What you want me to say?
What is it?
It's Bahamian fruit-inspired.
Thank you. That word Bahamian is important in that sentence.
Okay, Bahamian fruit-inspired jewelry. So you have, for example, the sea grape, the sugar apple, hog plum, those kinds of things. Yeah, and I'll probably come out with some new stuff at some point. But it's definitely one of those things that I started to do some testing quite some time back. And I think now is the time for me to bring it back to the forefront in terms of having it as my business that's being established going forward.
Matthew, you want to tell the radio folks anything before we say goodbye?
It's been a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this week's incredibly engaging episode of the Sunday Scotch Society. And we will see you next week. Da Zdarovia.
Or online.
Hopefully online. Skol, slancha, l'chaim.
Ciao.
See you later.
Ria, welcome back.
You were talking about the I don't believe that we are being fair when I ask the question, can a business be a calling? Because I think it's a false equivalency to begin with. So it was a trick question. But
Dun, dun, dun.
No one saw it coming.
the two of you may kiss the deepest part.
Oh, no.
The sea?
No.
The atmosphere down there is just
No.
Yes.
too much pressure.
Now, as I was trying to say before I was so rudely interrupted, but the reason that I made that false equivalency was because I think that that is the challenge that is put to so many people who feel passionate about something, who may have a calling, and who are also being told from pulpits, from across the table in terms of mentors, or even from the bedroom where mommy and daddy are talking to them, and tell them, find a way to make your passion pay, find a way to make a business out of your calling, right? And I don't know that that is wise or correct. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I don't know. And I'm curious about what both of you think about that. Whether or not you agree that it's happening and whether you think it's the right thing.
I'm going to jump in and say that the double helix is perhaps underappreciated here. Meaning, your personality
and you thought that
has
I was
a
being obtuse.
huge genetic component. And some things suit your personality more than others. And some people, despite what they may feel, should not attempt to go into business because it just does not temperamentally suit them. So
I might be one of those people.
it really depends. Now, those tendencies could be mitigated. You have people around you, but if you're gonna do just a straight up single person freelance style, and you can't wear the 14 hats effectively, and there are very few people who can, and you could struggle through, and then it's super important for you to start to delegate out that stuff. You're gonna have a rough go of it. So it is not for everyone, despite what their passions and other proclivities may be.
One of my the reason I'm glad that we are having this conversation with Rhea. I remember in a certain community, there was a leader, very highly respected leader, often quoted, often consulted, who made a huge deal about his belief that everyone was a leader. And his assertion was that everyone is a leader, and therefore everyone needs to be leading something. And the way that was interpreted by that community varied according to, I guess, the level of maturity or whatever the case may be of the community member. But it seemed that view seems to have infected is such a wrong word. That view seems to have influenced this community in a very, very powerful way, because everybody out there telling everybody else out there, you was a leader. And I think a lot of people get gassed up into jumping off a cliff they have no business jumping off. And I think that people are being unfairly and improperly used by this
mimetic infection. I like the word. I'm gonna make you stick to it. It is an infection of the mind.
And having their callings sacrificed on the altar of whatever the hot new philosophy or hot new religious fervor might be, if that's where it's coming from. And I don't think a calling is a religious thing at all, even though it gets talked about most frequently in those circumstances. And so I guess coming back to it, this conversation you asked while we were doing the show, how we got on this conversation. It really was because you were talking about how you're raising your children. And I think that is such a powerful place to exert influence.
The question of choice or lack thereof, and I will add a layer to that, is calling a compulsion or not? And if so, is that even a healthy thing?
Well, compulsion from the sense of being driven and directed using the words that Quincy said that I used.
You want me to play the tape back?
You don't have to play the tape back. So if you said that I said it, then sure, I'll take it for that. So give me that question again. Do I think it's more about compulsion?
Yeah, and whether or not that is a good or bad or irrelevant thing.
When I think about compulsion, I think it's just, it has a negative connotation to it at times because you think about something that's really, really forceful. But if we were to actually tie in the passion component to it, it doesn't sound like it's compulsion.
Well, I would like to thank you for a beautiful conversation and your time. I really wish I could have you for a full 2 hours, but I understand you have obligations in real life.
Real life obligations.
Real life obligations. I really appreciate that there are good parents in this world.
We have no evidence that she is one.
Well, I'm
What?
going to make...
What kind of thing is that?
I'm gonna
Listen
make
to me.
an assumption.
This will be my last time.
Because
First and last time
Excuse
on
me.
this.
I have no evidence.
You guys say that.
What you call
I
this?
have no evidence to the contrary, and so I will assume
Let me be
that she
very
is
clear.
good.
Let me be very clear. I have not met her son as far as I know, but I have met her daughter Ramaya, and the child is quite extraordinary. So I have perfect personal evidence to support the assertion that Rhea is a good parent. I want to be clear on that.
Oh, please let the listeners know that I'm not a bad parent.
She is a good parent. Her child, the one child that I've met, is a well-balanced, well-adjusted, intelligent, decent human being. So forgive me if I implied otherwise. I was only saying that we had no evidence. That the show has no evidence, because...
My gosh.
Yeah. Not
All
that
right.
I personally, Kyle, Quincy, Sheree, Vaughn, Cedric, Parker,
That's a lot of
have
names.
no evidence.
A lot.
A lot of names.
Rhea, thank you very much. We didn't get to talk about your Bahamian fruit-inspired jewelry, which I would actually like to talk about at some point. But then again, you would have to actually be doing that for me to talk about
I
it.
think that would be a
my
much lighter
goodness.
conversation.
It really would be a much lighter conversation. I was expecting today to be a light conversation, but we just...
I'm very happy to.
Jameson just did
disrupted
his
your
thing.
Expectations.
Why
You
are
totally disrupted
blaming
my
Jameson for
expectations.
this?
Because it only could have been Jameson and his black barrel.
Really? You don't think I could pull this off without a swig?
I don't know. It probably would not have taken so
Wow,
many
ladies
twists and
gentlemen.
turns.
Wow.
The woman,
This is
has
You hear the
accused-
aspersions.
Wow.
Triple distilled. That's what happens with triple distilled.
The fact
I could read.
I'm going to be good and decent because Jesus will be pleased if I am. And we all know we want Jesus to be pleased.
Amen.
The next time we have you on, we're going to talk about your TV stardom.